All right. So now I have to invite. Boo, 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 boo.
Ooh, turn it around.
It was so much easier this time. I can't wait to do it next time. I might actually not mess up.
Oh, this is awesome. We figured it out. All
Yeah.
right, let me see if I can get my phone to stay in like a decent position.
Randomly, I like the wing behind your picture, whatever picture that is. I see the butterfly wing or the
Oh,
dragon. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
beautiful.
that's so. There's a funny story about that, real quick. Um, Me and my husband were both huge ACOTAR fans, which is not unusual for me, but a little for him. But he loves all of Sarah J. Maas's stuff. And there's a paint and sip place by us that does like ACOTAR paint night and trivia. So we planned like a whole date night, went out to dinner, went to this paint and sip, and we get there, and it's just us and this one other woman who drove like an hour and a half for it. And so
Oh,
us, but we tried to make it as fun as possible for her. We had a good night.
that's nice though too. And isn't that funny? You always think that something's going to be big and then it's not, and then you think something's not going to be big and then it is, and it's just kind of like I don't even know how this works.
I know. So only thing is I can't see you, but I feel like this happened last time and it was fine.
Yeah. It did happen. I think it happened the first time. I can see you. I can see everything. So
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know why it happens. We could probably look that up later. But
Okay. I think we're good.
yeah. Well, welcome everybody.
Might just be us right now, but that's okay because we're going to record this and share it, and maybe people will hop in as we keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, we have to just introduce ourselves. So we are Coffee Talk with Christine and Kara, writing Coffee Talk with Christine and Kara, and we are going to talk today about romance tropes and romance writing. And Christine just got an agent for her romantasy, and I also write romantasy and dark fantasy, so that's kind of where we decided to bring our stuff to light.
Yes, and I also just started writing contemporary romance. I'm working on my first contemporary novel now, so I feel like we can come at this topic from lots of different angles, which is awesome.
It is. It absolutely is. And I was a ghostwriter for contemporary romance for like 3 years, so I did a lot of research and a lot of fun stuff with contemporary romance. So
Awesome. So, what coffee are you drinking, Kara? Or tea
I'm
or water?
yeah, I'm somewhat drinking water, but I'm also drinking just English breakfast tea. I had my coffee this morning, so
Oh,
how
that's
about yourself?
great. It's cold brew season, so I'm still finishing my cold brew. Big Stoke fans over here. So, yeah, yeah. So I think we wanted to just kick off with like quick 30-second updates. What's new with us, what we've been working on since the last time we did one of these, which was, I guess, about a month ago. So,
Yeah.
Kara, what's new with you? What have you been working on for the past month?
I am finishing up copy edits for my book two, Ashes Fall at Dawn, and then I'm going to start doing standalone small town fantasy romance things, still set in my world, but it's like the main characters are 30 and older, and so it's a little bit of a
Love
different
that.
crowd, but it's still, thank you. It's still romantasy technically. So it'll be standalone characters, but it'll still have other characters infused with it. So it's really fun. How about you?
That's awesome. I was just talking to another writer who writes middle grade, but she's doing the same thing. She's doing like a spin-off that's more adult about their parents, like the backstory. I love that. There's so much to pull from with romantasy. It's amazing. Okay, my quick 30-second update. Just cleared week 6 on submission. Had a call with my agent yesterday. He's feeling good. It's just slow. It's slow right now for everyone, but we have a couple of editors who are reading and enjoying, which is promising. So keeping fingers crossed, and just like prepping for a second round if we need it. And then, yeah, just working on this new project. Everyone says when you're on sub, just don't think about it, start writing something new. So I'm about halfway done with this new contemporary novel. And I was telling Kara, just literally before we got on the phone was writing the first kiss scene. So perfect timing to be talking about romance writing today. Very excited.
And it's always interesting, which again, I think I'd love to do something about that, like how you get to know your characters. I think that would be a fun talk about it too, because my
Yeah.
characters are real weird. So
They're all weird. They're all weird. Yes, Lena's here. First kiss scenes are the best. But I'm going to talk about this later. I don't know. I felt like they weren't ready. I felt like they weren't ready to kiss, and so I was like, "What's going on here?" So we'll talk about more like later about the tension and how you build to that point where people are literally like, "Kiss already!" like screaming for it, because that's really what you want your readers to feel when you get to that moment. Everyone's got to be more than ready for it to happen.
I think so too. Yeah, my characters are a little bit different. They go on all in on the lust, and then I have to dial it all back. So
That's awesome. That sounds super fun. All right, well, we're going to get into all of that, but first, we wanted to start with we're going to try to start having a new segment right at the beginning because, again, mission statement of this whole live is like really to bring indie and trad together and have a conversation about both. So this is our indie versus trad hot take sort of topic of the week, the month. What does it mean to be an indie author? And the idea for this conversation actually came up several weeks ago. I was talking to a friend who's more in like the academic world when it comes to writing. She's currently getting her MFA in poetry. She's a university librarian, and she was talking about indie authors. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean when you say indie authors? And she's like, like an author who was published by an independent press. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting because I feel like in this bookstagram sphere, like that is not how the term is being used. Kara, what do you think when you hear indie author?
so it is really interesting because if you ask certain parts of people, certain groups, like maybe MFA, academic, or even like in my local world, I told a book manager or bookstore manager that I was an indie author, and she's like, "No, you're not. You're a self-published person." And if you talk to anybody else, and she was like telling me all of these things, and I was like, "No." Um, the thing is that yes, I started an imprint, so technically I have my own press or something like that. But I think that where it gets really dicey is that everybody needs to compare everybody else to something else. So you're right. When I'm in the indie industry, like indie authors, I am not. We are all calling it indie authors. We are all calling it that. So when I step out of that sphere, and I get told like blah 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 blah, I'm like, oh, okay. So I think it's more about trying to fit something into a pocket.
Yeah, yeah.
And and honestly, like I'm still an independent publisher. I still publish my own stuff. I do technically have an imprint. For a while, I didn't feel comfortable calling myself indie publisher. But now I do because everybody in my universe calls it that, unless I, step it out. Sorry if that was a little too long.
No, no. I mean, I think it's so true. There's like a lot of blurring of the lines. I wound up doing a poll on Threads because I was like, settle a debate. Like, I think it means that you self-published, and my friend thinks it means that you have a small indie press. But like in my mind, it's like every publisher is independent. It's not like some of them are like, I don't know, owned by the government or something. They're all independent presses. So to say like if you're not big five, then it's like an indie press, and then you're an indie author, like it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, we did this poll on Threads. And I would say most people at this point that responded kind of agree with you and I, Kara, that it means you've self-published, you've published independently, and or maybe with a small press, but that's more of like the secondary definition at this point. So yeah, it's changing. The terms and what they mean are changing, which is really interesting because this industry is just evolving so quickly, and there's more options than ever for how authors publish their books and get them out there.
And there are, and just sort of to piggyback off that too, I know a lot of people not in the world that we're in only look at independent presses or if you query them without an agent. So that's like another level. I don't know
Yes.
much about that, but I do know that there are small presses that you don't need an agent for. They still consider themselves traditional, but they're independent. So it's all a blur.
Yes, it is. It's the different shades along a spectrum, I think, of all the different options that exist. So awesome. Okay. So why don't we get into it? We got so many amazing questions from bookstagrammers, writers, folks in our writing group around writing romance. So I'm just going to start asking you the first question, Kara, if that works for you.
Yeah.
So we can't talk about writing romance without talking about tropes. So this question is when you're writing romance or a book with romance, do you plan out your romance tropes in advance or do you just let them happen? That question came from Laura, and then really similar question from Philez writes, do you plot the whole thing out or just see what happens as you go?
So interestingly enough, or maybe it's not interesting at all, when I started doing ghostwriting, I had no flipping idea what a trope was. None at all. I just wrote, and it just so happens that this would fall under a certain trope. Now that I'm a little bit more educated and understand what the purpose of tropes are, like it's really a marketing, it's really, really important. You can peg it in like 5 phrases and your reader will understand what they're jumping into.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't plan it at first. I still don't, but after the book is written, I can go in and I can pull out the tropes. Um,
Yeah.
my series is always going to be Brother's Best Friend because that's how it started out. So that's something that I'll always peg it as, and mental health rep. So
Yeah,
that'll
and
be
I think it's interesting what you just said. It's always going to be brother's best friend. Like for me, when I started both of my books, really, even though I knew they were both going to be romance, and for me, I don't know that I'll ever write something that doesn't have romance in it because Rebecca Yarrow said it in one of her recent interviews. Like, if it doesn't have love, like, I'm kind of not interested. It's just that's what kind of emotionally anchors me to most stories. But even though that's the case, when I write a book, I usually don't, the love story is not like the central conflict that sparks the idea. There's something else happening with the main character that is sort of like that one sentence idea seed. So, for example, with Kingdom of the Owl, it was like New York woman has sleep hallucinations that are actually like a portal to another world. So that's the idea, and there's nothing in that about romance. So then for me, it becomes okay, what is like the best dynamic between the two main characters, male and female, to tell this story, to like have the growth happen. And that's when I think you like, not that you lean into tropes, but you wind up kind of falling into a trope because there are so many, right? So for Kingdom, it was kind of like strangers to lovers, a little bit of enemies to lovers. For my new book, I knew it was going to be like she falls in love with her ex-boyfriend's best friend that she hates, and it's enemies to lovers. So I think, same as you said, Kara, I think you kind of start planning the book and then some of these tropes just naturally happen. And then sometimes it's like, well, it's fantasy and it makes sense for them to be together on this one horse and everyone loves one horse or everyone loves one bed on the inn. So we're gonna lean into that here.
yeah. Lena did really well with that with her last book too, or her newest book. I got a chance to beta for that. It was really amazing. She does that really well.
Yes,
So
yes. And I think that's the thing too with tropes is like sometimes tropes get a bad rep. Like I think in the bookstagram and especially in the romantasy community, people love tropes, but I think outside of it, sometimes people hear tropes and they think like cliches. And so there's a balance, right? Like you can't just throw every trope into your book just so you can like claim that it has every trope. I think if you use too many, it can feel like a little insincere or unauthentic. And so you want to like kind of pick and choose the ones that really make the most sense for your story.
right. And on top of that, it's like marketing, right? Like I market to a very specific set of people, 25 to 44-year-old college age women. Men are getting thrown in there too. I don't mind that. It was just kind of a shock. But if I tried to market my book to everyone, then no one would be interested because there's no way
Yeah.
to all of the tropes in to market to everyone. It's that's too big of a funnel.
It's
Um,
so true. You can't be everything to everyone. Like your book has to have a point of view and then like you use the tropes that help tell that story. Don't I think we're in agreement, right? The story
yeah.
should drive the tropes and not the other way around.
And I think that there is a specific subsect of authors out there who are doing this as a business where they will pick 5 tropes and they will write it, but that is a very specific group of people. They come out of specific academies, which I have very many thoughts on, and I will not talk about that right now. But you can make money doing that, and people do, and that that really does drive some people. But they still only pick 5. It's not like they're like, oh, we're gonna pick everything. So
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you can do it either way. It's really what works best for you. Um,
I
awesome. Okay, so our next question is, what are your tips for making the steamy slash spicy scenes fresh and new for readers? This is from Teresa. Go ahead. I have thoughts, but you go first.
I have thoughts too, and Teresa, I love you, and you write beautifully, so don't be worried about that. Um, but honestly, it takes drafts, not just one go at it. It takes a lot of time to build those scenes up, and it's interesting because your steamy and sexy, spicy scenes usually really, in my opinion, and from what I've read from other people, they really tag your voice. It's really like I write in a lot of fractured stuff. I write sort of very jarring situations that usually depict like dissociation and those types of things with mental health. But it also works in steamy scenes because um, I had somebody say that you write the short parts, you write them long, like the slowest parts, you write it really fast, like it happens for pacing, and then with the longer parts, like a kiss or a hug or a handhold, you would write that in a longer draft because it gets into the visceral parts of
Oh, I
things.
love that. I've never heard that tip, but I think that makes so much sense. And I think that's where the rounds of drafting
Mm-hmm.
really help because the first time you write like a first kiss, and it is. It's those moments in between, like the actual kissing or the actual descriptions of the kissing that like really build the tension and suck the reader in. The description of how someone's feeling and thinking or not thinking and just doing. Um, and I think it does sometimes take multiple drafts to read it back and say, okay, am I like leaning into this enough? Am I really like stretching this out and letting the reader live in this moment enough or too much and to strike that balance? That's awesome advice. I've never heard that. I love it.
I know when I picked it up, I'm like, I'm gonna tell everybody when she told me, and I'm gonna totally credit you and everything. But it was like spot on.
Oh my God, you have your next tip Tuesday right there. So I have a slightly different take on this. Maybe I read the question a slightly different way because I was really focusing on like the how do you make it fresh and new for
Yeah,
readers. And my perspective on this is like when it comes to the actual spicy parts, you don't really need to do anything that new or crazy in that scene to make readers love it. I mean, not to always like use Akatar
well, no,
as an example. But like if you think about all of the love scenes in the first 2 books, they're all happening in a bed. It's like nothing
yeah,
crazy is happening. They're
right,
all pretty standard from a physical perspective in a bed. It's all of the emotional tension and the emotional revelations in those scenes that make readers die for them.
yeah,
And so for me, like I think if you are thinking, okay, every time, and actually there is an author who does this, and we read her book for book club over the holidays, and people were like, kind of like, it was too much. Like, do people actually do these things in romantic situations? It was
yeah.
distracting. I think if you feel this need to constantly like one up yourself and one up other books in terms of like physically what's happening in a spicy scene, I don't know. I mean, again, there's something for everyone. There's always a reader that's going to be there for like just the shock factor, but I think most readers they're there for like the emotional
Mhm.
climax in addition to the physical one. So I think if you make the emotional story raw and fresh, the physical is just the culmination of that, and it doesn't need like in terms of mechanics to be anything that crazy.
Well, I guess just again to sort of piggyback off of that too, I think that in those kinds of scenes, you really have to start either learning to trust your instincts and learning to trust your gut because and trust the characters because they go off the rails all the damn time.
Yes.
Um, but like, and then they sort of tell you what to do or what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like in the steamy scenes. So, and that also, you're always going to bring your unique take on it too, right? Like we could write the same exact scene and it would still be different.
Exactly. Exactly. And yes, let your characters lead because, if you have like a pretty reserved character, they're not all of a sudden going to be like doing all this like crazy stuff in a romantic scene, even if you think that's what readers want. It's like not true. It's going to feel jarring and strange. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. Ooh, I love that question so much. So, our next question is from Olivia. And that question is, what is your favorite trope to write?
I love enemies to lovers. It is so freaking fun. I love it so
Everyone
much.
loves
I
it.
love
So many people posted on our posts about this. Enemies to lovers, enemies to lovers. Everyone loves it.
it is, but it's so interesting because it's not necessarily you can challenge people in a different way that they wouldn't have been other unless they met, the same person. So, I like realistically, I would never want an enemies to lovers relationship because it would drive me crazy. But I love reading it. It's so much fun. And E.J. Mello wrote The Dance of the Burning Sea. It's the book two in the Musai series. And the way she wrote Enemies to Lovers, and I was like, okay, I love this. Like, it was just amazing. So that's really where my love came from. And then I started writing it, and it was just so much better. Like, it was just so
It's
much.
so much fun to write. And I'm sure there are people more qualified than me to talk about this, but like why is it fun to write? Why is it fun to read? I mean, I think it's because first of all, like a book without conflict is boring, right? And there's no easier way to have conflict than when you have two people who hate each other but are kind of attracted to each other. And so like they're fighting each other, they're fighting themselves. It's like it's so much conflict to dig into. And then there's nothing more satisfying in a book than growth, right? And so like that growth going from like we hate each other to we're in love with each other and we've conquered all of these obstacles to get to that point. It's like it's just satisfying on so many different levels, I think, as a reader to read it, to write it. So I think that's psychologically why so many people love that trope. And honestly, it'll probably never go out of style. It's like almost like one of those core, it's like the hero's journey, right? It's like one of those core story arcs that as like humans just kind of speaks to us.
I mean, and it does, right? It's more realistic because I love my husband, but he drives me fucking insane. And I drive him fucking insane. Like, we are very balanced. Like, we're very opposite, but we're balanced. We balance each other out. So it's a really realistic way to look at things, too.
So it's a perfect tie into another question we got about enemies to lovers specifically from Lena. How do you make it believable when you're writing it? How do you make enemies to lovers believable?
And again, that's drafting, right? My first draft was for an accidental fairy tale was vastly different than my last draft because I still had to. I knew that it was going to be an enemies to lovers because my one character Max is very grumpy and he has every right to be. But so I knew that there was going to be that tension, but I couldn't figure it out until I drafted the whole thing. It was the first draft. It was not great, but it was a draft, right? Like it was rough.
Can't
And then,
a blank
right,
page.
right. So probably like the fourth, it really started to come into play. Like the next draft, okay, I figured out the story. Then the draft after that, I realized, okay, this is how I would play with the enemies to lovers. But it really did take about four drafts. Like I know that seems like an easy answer, but it's just
It's just
trust.
the reality of writing sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I really like tried to think about this question in the context of the project that I'm working on right now because it is very, very intense enemies to lovers. And I think there were three things. And if you're thinking about writing an enemies to lovers, you could probably like brainstorm around these three things and give yourself a jump start. So the first is there needs to be a really believable reason why they hate each other, right? Like if you're just like, oh, we hate each other, but there's no good reason for that, then like you lose credibility from the start and you lose some of the tension from the start. I think that reason needs to be on from both perspectives, right? Like the girl has to hate the guy for some reason, guy has to hate the girl for some reason. But I do think it can be more interesting, and this is the second point, if one person really hates the other and the other doesn't really hate them quite as much, but is kind of faking it to meet them where they are, or they're just leaning into the parry or the sparring because it's all they can get of this person. So like think about that. Like the degrees of hatred don't always need to be equal. Um, and then the other thing you need is, okay, well, they hate each other, so why would they ever be around each other? You need some sort of scenario that's going to force them to be on the page together and to be ideally like working together for some common goal. Because that I think is where they start to see each other in a different light, right? We've got to get all the way from A, enemies, to Z, lovers. How can we get them there? They need to not just physically be attracted to each other, but like emotionally start to see the other person in a different light and like them and like elements of them.
Right.
And I think the best way to do that is some sort of scenario, right? That's going to like force them to see the best in the other person and like their strengths and their skills and that they aren't as much of an asshole as they thought they were.
Well, and that's the thing too, right? Your characters still have to be good people. Like they still there you have to have a reason to like each character. Like because if you're gonna have an enemies to lovers and the one guy's always gonna be a dick, it will be kind of like, why?
Yes. And I just saw someone just did an amazing post on this. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a tip on writing a morally gray male main character. And it was like, give them a noble cause.
Mhm.
And I love that because it's like, they could be a dick, but it's got to be like a means justify the ends kind of thing, right? Like they're trying to do some greater good. They're just going about it in a very morally gray kind of way, but like they're still a good person deep inside. I mean, very like again, Rhysand or like most of these like shadow daddies. That's what's happening. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that, right? Like there's got to be some save the cat moment for them, some redeeming quality.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate too. It's a great explanation.
Yeah. Um, okay, let's see. We've got a couple more questions. I know we're at time, but I think we can go a little bit over. So, this is a great question from Nordic Mom Reads. When is it too early to break the tension, and when is the right point for readers to be screaming for them to kiss already? What do you think, Kara?
Um, it depends on what kind of book it is, right? Like, because it could be a fast burn, it could be a slow burn. I learned with my reviews that every single person has a very different perspective of what my level of burn is for book one. Some people said they liked each other too fast. Some people said that they liked each other too slow. Some people said it was just right. So there's
Yeah,
really the Goldilocks porridge situation. So on a different level, my characters always have sex first. In my first drafts, they always have sex first. And then it's not realistic. Like, why are they having sex? So that's really something, the why I think is really important there. Um,
yeah,
if you're going for a research based idea, usually in contemporary romance, average is 25% they kiss, 50% they get together, 75% they break up, or there's the last, act three breakup, and then they get back together again. So that's like a scientific formula
I
for it.
I literally had it written down, the 50% mark theory, because see, I think it differs if it's a standalone versus a series. So yeah, like I actually am reading the new Abby Jimenez and I'm like getting to the 25% mark and I'm like, ooh, they haven't kissed yet. What is she doing here? And I'm like, wait, I'm only a quarter into the book. Like that's okay. But it's true. Usually there is some sort of kiss around the 25% mark. And then, yeah, exactly, because you need to get to that third act breakup. However, in a series, I think it's different because it can be a much slower burn. And also, you need to drag that tension out over multiple books. So if you have them kiss at the 25% mark, sometimes it's like it's happening a little bit too soon. With Kingdom of the Owl, I didn't plan it this way, but I did realize they wound up the first kiss is maybe I shouldn't say because it's a spoiler, but whatever. It's around the 50% mark. And then, things happen from there. But like there's a big thing at the end that keeps that tension, burning for the rest of the books. But I've seen plenty of like Spark of the Everflame is one where like there's very little action in the first two books and it's just all about the tension. Some people like that. Some people said the slow burn was so slow it burned itself out.
Yeah.
So, I think you have to be careful with that. But yeah, if you're writing a standalone, it's a lot easier. I think it's a little trickier with a series. And I thought that also is where maybe getting a little more creative with some of the spicy scenes can help.
Yeah. And it absolutely is. Like there are closed door books that are very tension heavy in across the genres, and they're done so well that it doesn't matter when people get it on. But it does get a little bit frustrating, I think too.
Yeah,
Kaylee says, oh,
yeah,
sorry,
like
go.
I love that. So yeah, exactly. Nothing crazy till book two. I think that that's pretty common in romantasy because you got to like make it last
Yeah,
across the series. Cassandra Clare, I mean, granted she writes YA, so it's got to be, or maybe new adult-ish, it's got to be kind of fade to black. But I remember reading her like Shadowhunter books and like the Dark Artifices and things like that, and I'm like, oh my God, the tension is so good, and like you never see anything, but it's like chef's kiss. I love it.
yeah. Hi, Amy. Also,
Hi guys. All right, let's see. We have two more questions. Let's just go for it if it works for you, Kara, and then we'll wrap it up. So
oh, you broke up. I don't know if it's me or Christine. She froze a little bit.
hang on, I got that. Uh, Instagram's trying to tell me I spend too much time on Instagram. Just leave me alone, Instagram. Um, when you write romance or steamy scenes, what is the main focus, the physical or the emotional aspect of the scene? And this is from the Magic Quill.
Thank you, Sarah. So I always focus on the emotional part of it. It's really about intimacy and the characters getting to know one another and the characters sort of coming together on a new level. Interestingly enough, when I first started writing contemporary romance, which I've been told was a crap comment, one of my clients said that my first draft of a sex scene was not spicy enough, or they didn't get turned on or something like that. And several people told me like that's obviously I know that it's first draft, but come on. um
Yeah.
and and I had a great editor tell me, she's like, but it's not about physical. It might be, there are some books that are about physical, that's why we have, smut, right? Like that's why we have erotica, but there's always still a reason why these people are getting together. So I always think that it's pretty much emotional, even if it's just like a casual one night stand. There's a reason why those two people came together emotionally for a one night stand.
I completely agree. I mean, I don't even know if I have anything to add. I just completely agree. I mean, it's like almost like what's the point of the physical without the emotional? I mean, then it is just like you said, it's just smut or, whatever. And I think that's where you get to that like just kiss already, right? Like people are screaming because of the emotion and the tension that built up to it. And then it's just cathartic for the reader, like it's cathartic for the characters. So I think, yeah, if you don't have the emotion, it's just not going to have an impact.
Right. And I think that that's true with all, even smut, right? Like there still has to be that human connection, even with monsters.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, Kelly agrees with us in the chat. Okay, so I guess related to that, why don't we do this last one and then we'll do the dialogue question. How do you build tension without necessarily leaning on spice? I mean, I think this again is why so many people love enemies to lovers because the tension is just like built into every interaction. I read a really great advice lately that was like when you're for every chapter that you write, figure out what like is the conflict in that chapter or what is the problem and what is the main character that, the point of view of the chapter is from, what are they trying to accomplish and really like home in on that. And I think that helps keep like tension and conflict really high. And when you're writing romance, like you want those two main characters to be on the page together as much as possible. Like, I feel like for me when I'm reading it, like if it's more than a chapter or two where they're not together, I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Like when are they going to be back in the same room? This is getting a little boring. So, I think that's part of it. And then like I think it's touching without like kissing and full blown spice. It's like the subtle grazes, the hand on the lower back, the lingering glances, and then leaning into the reaction, the internal reaction. How does that make them feel? Are they flushed? Are they whatever? All of those things help build that like attraction and that tension without actually like having it be a spicy scene.
Hmm. I mean that, yeah, that's really a great way to even put it. And I only have to add, like, so when I read or write spicy scenes, like I get that headed brain fog situation thing going on, that when you're, first in love or lust with, or like with someone, you start like getting that little shot of
Yeah,
dopamine, and figuring out how to write that brain fog without just always saying like, oh, I come up from the lusty fog or something like that, I think is part of that as well.
that's so true. I mean, I feel like that's why a lot of romance readers love romance. It's like, if you're married or in a long-term relationship, like that falling in love feeling, you've experienced it and hopefully you're still in love, but there's nothing like falling
Yeah.
in love. And so when you read a romance book, you get that dopamine hit every time there's this like spark between the characters, whether it's full spice or not. I think more so when it's not, it's the buildup. And so you want to give your readers that like that spark, that dopamine hit as much as possible. And I think it's equal parts, this dance that they're doing with each other and also the dialogue, which is the last question. We saved one of the best questions for last. Dialogue can be so hard to nail down in romance. How do you do it? How do you heighten tension? Um, Honestly, my advice here, it's really hard. This is a craft, is to read as much romance and romantasy as possible, and read it with like a studious mind in terms of like you're trying to learn from it, not just enjoy it. What are they doing? What I tend to notice is that less is more with dialogue, right? And it could take multiple rounds of drafting to get it there, but for the most part, it's going to be concise and the characters are leaving a lot unsaid, right? Because in real life, when you're dating someone, you're just getting to know them, especially if it's enemies to lovers, you're not telling them everything that's on your mind. You are playing so much close to the vest, and what you're saying might be flirty or quippy or standoffish, even, or awkward, and
Right.
you're probably not saying a ton. And so I think like noticing these things in other books that you think do it really well, and then just not overwriting it or editing it back after you draft it, I think can help a lot.
Well, I guess I really only have one other thing to say about that too, because it's really about character development, because dialogue really does dictate who your character is. As an anecdote, my female main character, Caitlin, was basically one of the most complicated characters that I had to write, and her character didn't come in until the very last round. But like that's
Interesting.
really when all the character snappy stuff, like I have really sarcastic characters, I have really, and that's the development of your character will bring out the development of the dialogue, I think.
Yes, I totally agree. And that actually is something to like just put a pin on that, to not put too much pressure on yourself to get that like romantic dialogue or those like mic drop one lines on the first draft. Like just get down like the essence of the scene, the bones of it. I mean, I know, my critique partner, when she writes, it's like she writes the first draft, then she's like, okay, now I'm going to go back through and like put in all those amazing, like make you blush one-liners. Like that's like a deliberate pass that she does. And I think that that's really great because it's really hard to do everything all at once. And those make you blush one-liners are important, right? Like I was reading this Ali Hazelwood holiday novella in December, and there was this one line in there where it was actually not even between the two love interests. It was like the guy's sister was telling the girl, like, oh, my brother is gone for you. And I never heard that in a book before. Like, he's just gone for you. And like, it just like was so good. I like loved that so much. And like, sometimes these types of lines don't come to you in the first draft, or like you've got to have a whole big profession of love and you're going to have to refine that and refine that and refine that. That's okay. Like, step away, come back, read other stuff for inspiration. Like that's all so helpful with dialogue in particular.
It is, and that's a really good point too. I like it.
I like it. Oh, we could talk all day. We are 10 minutes over, but that's okay because we had some really great conversation in the chat. Let's see, did we miss any questions?
No
What I
question.
struggle, Callie, what I struggle with as a reader, and sometimes I want to make sure I don't lose as a writer, is the characters kind of losing that spark once they get together. Yeah, yeah. Uh, that I think that's the big challenge with a series, right? Like I think when you're writing a standalone, whether you use that formula that Kara shared or not, it's a little bit easier because they don't get together until usually the very end. Like that's where there's a third act breakup. They're together, and now as soon as they're together, the story's over. So yes, how do you keep them from losing that spark? For me, I think it's employing things that are going to keep them somewhat apart or keep them from having that happily ever after right now. Like I don't think they can get that happily ever after until the very end.
Mhm.
So how can you kind of keep them either like physically or emotionally apart without pissing off your readers super hard? Super hard because I think we've all read like the miscommunication trope where we want to throw the book at the wall or
Yeah.
like screw this and unrealistic. So that is really that's tricky, but I think that's what you have to think about is like how can I give them a conflict that's going to keep them apart. Like think about other books you've read where they've maybe gotten together in book 3 but there's still a whole book, or book 2 but there's still a whole book 3 to get through. How did that author keep it interesting in that book and keep your interest, whether it was a physical separation or an emotional separation or a near death experience, something like that, that they helps you see different dimensions of their love story.
Um, yeah, external factors are always going to be able to be a good play in keeping things sort of like tight, like tension wise. My series is 12 books, and it's not necessarily about the relationship between the male main character and the female main character, but there is that relationship, and there has to be tension because they've gotten together at the first book. So it's always from here on out, it's going to be external factors or conflicts within themselves and different things like that.
I echo Kelly's Jesus 12. Kara, I love it. I love this for you. It's like the Outlander approach. Go make your millions. Yeah, we're all in awe. The only thing I will add to that, and then we can wrap it up, is sometimes it means more love stories in addition to the main one, right? So if you haven't signed up for an arc of Lena Kazak's second book yet, do it, but she's marketing it as like 3 love stories in one or 3 romances in one. And I think that's so great because if one of the couples has settled into their relationship a little bit more, you get that fresh dopamine of the meet cute and the are they, will they, won't they, from a secondary couple or secondary POV, and it helps keep it exciting. So yes, lots of options there.
Very good. Yes. And
Yeah.
it is 3 books and 3 love stories in one book. It's done really, really well.
It is. So many shout outs to her today. I hope everyone goes and grabs a copy of that book. It's like ACOTAR book 2. It's so good.
It
Okay,
is.
wrap it up. Kara, any things you would ask folks that are listening today, to engage with you?
Um, Still not good at this, but we are going to be putting this on YouTube. So we definitely have recordings, and you can make notes, or you can reach out to us via DM or shoot us just a comment on our things. You can also find me at my website. It's karamzone.com. And I think that's it. How about you?
Yeah. If you're not following me, follow me, please. Share this with any writing or reading friends that you think might love it. We are obviously all trying to grow our followings together, and that's great. And then I would just say if you know anyone who needs an editor or especially a submissions coach for trad publishing, I just had one of my clients just had a huge win yesterday, and I can't wait to be able to share it, but it's her news, so she has to share it first. But I'm doing submissions coaching, manuscript editing. If you guys know anyone who needs, send them my way. I love it so much. It's making me really happy. So I want to do more of it. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for being here. We love talking about this stuff. I think in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking world building. We're going to be talking indie versus trad at a future one. So keep coming back.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Have a good Friday and weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Oh.